So, have you ever received a gift that you weren't sure that you wanted? I hear a little bit of sniggering, right? It happens to all of us, right? I mean, you didn't ask for it. You certainly never expected it. And now it's just like, wow. Sometimes there's this awkward sort of gift. You have to pretend like it's exactly what you wanted. And then somehow figure out what exactly you're going to do with it. You know, do you use it? For it, after all, is kind of amazing. It might have even been one of those kinds of gifts that's huge and incredibly generous. But is it you? So what do? Can you just put it on that shelf? You know, the regifting shelf up in the closet, so that after a suitable amount of time, someone else who will in fact appreciate it as it so rightfully deserves can make use of it. Only some gifts, they're not like that. You can't just, pass them on. So do you have a place that you can keep it so that it can come out when it needs to be seen? Like, for example, when that person who gave you the gift visits. I have a shelf for that. But the thing is, you never quite really figure out what to do with it otherwise. It becomes like a duty, an obligation. Also, though, it's sort of a treasure, because it's a way that you remember that person or the occasion of that giving. The tablecloth with the turtle on it from your wedding. I got one of those. It's cool, but there's only so many places you can use a tablecloth with the turtle, right? So, do you maybe make it part of your life? Does it change you or discover that you, in fact, are becoming a different person? Something about the gift or you that you didn't appreciate at first. It could even be something that in hindsight, you, in fact, didn't imagine that your life could live without. You see, the point I'm trying to make is that gifts, they're not always easy. And sometimes they can take some time, because they create an obligation, they cement relationships in a new and different way, and they could set you on this completely different path, transform something fundamental about you and your life that you may or may not have chosen, given the option up front. I mean, look at Jeremiah the prophet. Now, he received a gift that he was not sure that he wanted. He even tries to refuse the gift flat out. But you know what? God is not having that. Jeremiah was, in fact, a priest. He was born to be a priest. He knew who he was and what his role was in society. Because to be a priest in Jeremiah's time was something that was inherited from birth. You were part of that lineage. If you are of the line of Benjamin, you just grow up knowing that you're going to be one of the ones that officiates at all of those rituals for the community, making offerings on behalf of the community, and bringing blessing to the life of the community. Now, priests also probably had a day job, so to speak. They had herds to mind or fields that they needed to farm. But throughout each season of the year, they present those special offerings in holy times and in special places. And they are the ones that help keep the community connected to God. But to be a prophet, now that is another thing entirely. Now, God may have always known that this was going to be Jeremiah's calling, but it is definitely not something that Jeremiah ever thought about or would have ever asked for. I mean, why would he? Being a prophet is a thankless job because there's a lot of pulling up and plucking down and speaking truth to power, telling kings and nations the things that they really do not want to hear. Well, that is not always work that is perceived as a blessing, right? And you can see why Jeremiah tries to turn it down. You don't want me to be a prophet, God. I'm just a kid and no one's going to listen to me. But God goes ahead and puts those words right there in Jeremiah's mouth anyway and says, go forth, pluck, plant, be a prophet, make some waves. The thing is, Jeremiah actually turns out to be a prophet in one of the most pivotal times in the whole history of his people. Because there's a war with Babylon that leaves Judah, which was the seat of David's mighty kingdom, and Jerusalem as its capital, leaves all of that in ruin. The ruling class end up being exiled, their infrastructure is completely destroyed, the entire society's economy and social structure, they are thrown into chaos. In the middle of all of that, Jeremiah is the prophet who's able to uniquely give voice to the pain, the trauma, the loss that the people of Judah endure. And he figures out how to do it without any whitewashing of the grief. Jeremiah does this in a way that's an honest struggling to figure out where God is in all of that they've been through, and if in fact there's a way forward for them as a people. Now, if you've read Jeremiah, you'll know that he rails at the brutality of the invaders. He gets angry at the myriad failings of their leaders, and he yells at God even. But through all of that, Jeremiah cobbles together an understanding of what happened and why that fits together the misshapen pieces of what they've been through in a way that makes sense of all of that senselessness. And he does this so that the people can hold it together until a time when things will be different and it will feel like God is with them once again. And the amazing thing is, just like God said he was going to be, Jeremiah has truly been a prophet for the nations. Because for several millennia now, the descendants of Judah and all of the peoples who have inherited the biblical tradition have looked to him and his writings to understand how it is that God is at work in some of the hardest and most traumatic points of their own stories. How could Jeremiah have known? And in hindsight, would he still be ambivalent about receiving this gift of prophecy? I'm thinking he might. But the thing is, it was given to him nonetheless. And it made an indelible mark on Jeremiah. And it made an indelible mark on all that comes after him. His gift became a gift for all time. Now, Jesus today is doing his own version of that very same sort of thankless reminding to everyone around him that they have in fact received a gift that they're not so sure what to do with. A bit of disruptive plunking up and planting down, well, that is definitely in Jesus' playbook. Jesus starts off by surprising a woman who happened to be in the synagogue that day. We don't know why, but I like to think of her as a regular attendee of the Sabbath service. I mean, you know how it is. We go every week because it's our lifeline. It's the place where we hear the words that remind us of our connection to God and our community of faith. But when we come, do we in fact expect that kind of total transformation in a single moment? I'm not sure I always walk into church with that expectation that I'm going to walk out and be basically a completely new person. We kind of like the gentle week-to-week approach. At least I know I do. And the thing is, we don't even know that she wanted that kind of transformation because Jesus doesn't ask her. He doesn't even take the time to get her name. It's like this spur of the moment gift. Woman, you are set free from your ailments. Bang, it's done. And from the perspective of Jesus' audience, this is an exorcism. Because I know we all look at how her ailments are described, and it sounds to us like scoliosis or maybe osteoporosis. But they understood those kinds of illnesses as possession by malicious spirits. And even today, I think the public perception of this kind of event would tend to lean towards, she's been set free. Hooray, right? And she praises God. Of course she does. I mean, what else would she do in that very public moment? But in fact, we really don't know if she wanted this kind of change in who she is and how she's living her life. I know that disability activists today have given voice to all of the assumptions that fully abled people tend to make about what disabled people might wish for and how they view their own disabilities. So yeah, it's a gift that she may have wanted and she may not. And she may not even know yet how she feels or what she's going to do with it until its full ramifications start to play out in her life. But what's obvious is that Jesus sees it as a gift, the gift of liberation and fullness of life. And it's also clear that the synagogue leaders, well, they see this healing as basically just bad timing. It looks, I think, like Jesus is intentionally being provocative here. He's breaking into some sort of moment, a moment where they're just kind of know what to expect and what's happening, and bing, it's completely different. I mean, most of us are Episcopalians. When we come to church on Sunday, we know what the liturgy looked like. If someone stood up and started bursting out into spontaneous prayer, we'd be a little bit weirded out by that, right? I see some people smiling. It's not really our style. So here we are with this woman, and there's Jesus. He's busy making everyone feel discomfort because they are having their Sabbath rules broken in the middle of their weekly service. And he's doing this to remind them that the Sabbath is in fact a gift from God. Because he knows that, humans, we might in fact feel a little ambivalent about what to do with that kind of gift. It's a generous gift, it's a gift that sets us free, but you know what? We also love our work. And the point of Sabbath, God rested, right? It's a pause, it's an opportunity for us to remember and appreciate that huge, amazing gift of all the life that's from God. But there's another piece to it that Jesus is really asking us to pay attention today. You can tell from that story about the donkey. He's reminding people that it's a remembrance that God is not just our maker, that God didn't just rest after making us, but that God is our liberator. God made us free. God saved people from slavery in Egypt, and God frees all of us, gives us all free will to live life abundantly. That is God's vision for the world and for the kingdom. So, in the Jewish tradition, every Sabbath is thought of as a little exodus. Your workers are freed from work every 7 days. It's a gift that has ramifications that go beyond just that week-to-week Sabbath cycle. Because in the Jewish tradition, every 7 days is a Sabbath, every 7 years is a Sabbath year, and every 7th Sabbath year plus 1 is the Jubilee year, which is a kind of Sabbath writ large. The land rests, enslaved people are freed, and all debts are canceled. It's pretty amazing, right? But I can guess that people in ancient Israel, they sometimes felt a little ambivalent about that too. I mean, you find it in the Old Testament. Sabbath, then, as now, has become a sort of religious habit. It can do that easily if we let it. It's like this thing that we put on the special shelf that we polish and pull out once a week. I mean, we treat it with enormous reverence, and it shapes and patterns our lives because one day belongs to God and not work. But I think also we're not always sure what to do with it. The rules sometimes overshadow its full treasure. Jesus wants to remind them and us about Sabbath's full riches, which include liberation, justice, jubilee, God's salvation for all. Well, work, as we know, has become even more compelling for us today than it probably was in Jesus' time. So it's not surprising that the world resists the idea that we should stop even for a minute, and that rest is in fact some sort of gift. Not to mention how hard it is to say that all debts should be forgiven. That's huge. But that's what God's offering us. So what can we do as individuals and as communities of faith and as the whole of humanity with this gift, the gift of Sabbath? It's a gift of goodness, it's a gift of liberation. It's meant to feed our very existence. It may in fact be the kind of liberation that we're not always sure we want, because work is the thing that gives our life meaning today a lot of the times. But Jesus wants us to know Sabbath is the kind of gift that we have to pull out and re-examine all the time so that we let it shape us and transform us in ways that we didn't even know to ask about, much less could fully appreciate or accept up front. Sabbath is that kind of gift that we can't just place in a box on a special shelf. Because you know what? Keeping the lid on liberation for all, well, that's just not possible. God just gave it to the whole of creation and set this universe free, making all of it to live and love abundantly. It's like God created and then said, go, pluck, plant, make waves. Those are gifts, amazing gifts, but they are not always easy. So what do we do with the gift we weren't sure we wanted? I think it's a lifelong practice. And if we're honest, it's one that every last one of us approaches with an equal measure of ambivalence and joy. We're all figuring it out along the way, letting it shape and transform us 7 days, by 7 years, by 7 times 7 years. I want to close today with the prayer from our Jewish brothers and sisters that is used to open Shabbat. It's a great start for this practice. Blessed are you, Infinite One, who makes us holy through our actions and honors us with the light of Shabbat. Blessed are you, Lord our God, ruler of the universe, who commands us to kindle the light of Shabbat. Amen.